All right, YouTube, let's go ahead and talk about the science behind the build of this Wrestlefish kayak, okay, that we're doing. I have several parts coming. Part one's already up, but I thought before we talked about the rest of it, we might as well, talk about why this is going to work. A lot of my friends, I posted some of these on Facebook, and they're like, man, you're going to sink. And I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to sink, because everything on the boat, floats. Even if it came apart, I could grab a piece of foam and, kick my feet to the shore. But that's not going to happen. You should see the bond, that you get with this great stuff in this foam right here. So like right here, okay, you can see these are just two pieces of foam put together. I'm a wrestling coach. I have a strong grip, and I cannot rip this apart. The whole foam will break, okay, before the bond will break. So this great stuff is really good, for putting the styrofoam together. It's just styrofoam. So when you use styrofoam to bond styrofoam, you end out with one big old chunk of styrofoam, which is what we want. Okay, so let's talk about Archimedes' principle real quick. Ancient Greeks, this is not new science at all. Okay, but long, long time ago, okay, we can, weigh water, and we know that 1 cubic foot of water weighs 62 pounds. Okay, if you're going to try to push something under the water, okay, if you're going to push 62 pounds of water out of the way, okay, you have to use a force of 62 pounds. Actually, 620 newtons, because, force versus, mass, but, layman's term, when we say weight, okay, usually we're talking about mass unless we're in the science room. So don't get too picky on me, science people. I'm talk to normal folk right now. I'm going to be using pounds instead of newtons. Okay, but yeah, so 62 pounds to push out, 1 cubic foot, out of the way. Okay, that's what we need. So right here, you just have two objects, one smaller than the other, and it makes sense that it's going to take more force to push the bigger, ball under the water than the smaller one. Okay, and that's how Archimedes' principle works. Okay, but we can calculate it, right? We can calculate the volume, okay, of the object, figure out how much water would go in it. Okay, how much would that water weigh? Okay, and then that's the buoyancy. That's the buoyancy of that object. Now, you go ahead and add that to an object that's really, really light. Okay, and now you have something that's going to float, right? Because if you just have something that's the right shape made out of lead, if it's heavy enough, it might still sink. But the whole secret to buoyancy is air. That's why you can take a huge ship, made out of steel, okay, but you have a lot of empty space in it, because it's got walls and empty space on the inside, and the whole key is to just make sure the buoyancy is more than, the weight of the boat. And if that's the case, okay, it will float. Okay, and that's how Archimedes' principle works. So when you look at this build right here, this kayak's 3 foot by 8 foot for the first sheet. That's 24 square feet. Okay, this is a 12-foot kayak, so we took 4 foot off of another board. Okay, and then that's a triangle because it tapers to a corner. So we're going to have to divide by 2 on that. So 4 times 4 divided by 2, 8 square feet. Okay, for a total of 32 square feet, okay, of area on the bottom of this boat. Okay, to go ahead and calculate the buoyancy, we need to multiply that by the height, which is going to be 4 inches. Two 2-inch sheets of foam are glued together. Okay, and of course 4 inches is 1/3 of a foot. So if we take 32 square feet times a third, we basically end out with, a little more than 10 cubic feet. Multiply that by 62 pounds, we have 620 pounds of buoyancy. So if I were to take 620 pounds of weight and put it on this kayak, that 4 inches would be, in the water, but then you would still have the walls of the kayak to hold you up. Now, the way I designed this kayak, I want to design this kayak so that 4 inches wasn't in the water. This is self-bailing. This is going to go down, maybe 3 inches. There's going to be at least an inch, above the water, and I'm going to put, holes strategically in the kayak in case it rains or whatever. Instead of the rain, staying in the kayak, it'll just roll out. Okay, on a really, really wavy day, if waves came up and, got into that scupper hole, they would just turn around and go right out, just like your Carolina skiffs and things like that have those self-bailing holes. Okay, and that's how this is going to be. So Foamular, one of the things about it, okay, is it has a really, really good compression strength. So when we look at compressions when we push it this way, okay, and the compression strength is so good, okay, that they use this under concrete. But one thing that it's not good at is when we push it the other way, and this is called tensile strength. So the compression strength is high, the tensile strength is low. So what we do, okay, is we add some fiberglass. Okay, so when we look at the load here, the science behind this is, and everybody knows that, the person on the inside of a track, has an advantage in winning the race because they don't have to go as far, right? Okay, well, when this foamular is straight, the top and the bottom, from point A to point B is the same distance. Okay, but as soon as you bend it, okay, you have an inside curve and an outside curve. Obviously, the outside curve is going to be a longer distance. Okay, and what that does, as it lengthens, okay, it causes it to tear. Okay, and that's why you get breakage. So when we build these things, the goal is to add tensile strength to this, and the way we do that is by putting a piece of cloth on that's not stretchy. Okay, it needs to be a piece of cloth that has good tensile strength. Okay, and then we bond it to the foam with a glue, maybe with a polyester resin, which is what they use in the boat building industry. We're going to use Titebond glue because we're going to try to keep this on the cheap. Okay, but as long as you get it there, it's good. The Titebond glue, it sands up really well. Put paint over the top of it, and we still have an attractive looking boat. Okay, so what we're going to use for this, because we're going to be on a budget, is we're going to just use fabric that we have at home. That could be bed sheet. Okay, I'm using a piece of shade cloth I had from a shade project, that I had about 4 or 5 years ago. It's just been sitting in my garage, and I had a lot of it. So I went ahead and used that. We're going to use Titebond 2, okay, which is less expensive than 3, but it's outdoor grade. 1 is indoor, so make sure that you use 2 or 3. 3 is more expensive than 2. I used 2, and 2 worked fine. Okay, so I would just go with the 2, and then of course we have, our cloth and some scissors. I originally, when I started, I was using a paint roller to put the glue out. What I found is the nap kind of soaked the paint up, um, and when we used a putty knife instead, I feel like you get more product on the sheet. Okay, and it's also easier to make contact with the sheet and the board. So I thought the scraper worked better. Okay, when we look at the boat build and we look at the bottom, okay, here's what you're going to do. Okay, and you're really going to need 3 pieces of foamular just to get the bottom, on a 12-foot kayak. Okay, because your first board, okay, you're going to get an 8-foot section right here. Okay, and then you're going to get 2 runner boards, which are going to go on the bottom. That's these right here. Okay, to keep the boat tracking true. That's the bottom of the boat. So there'll be a 2-inch gap right here for the water to run through, kind of a tunnel hole. Okay, and those that 2 inches will bite the water, and when you're moving forward, it'll keep that kayak from blowing all over the place. And in high winds, this kayak is going to blow a little bit because it's a light. Okay, and you have to have those running boards. If you don't have those running boards, you're going to be all over the place. Okay, so those running boards are important. Okay, but then you're going to have to get a second board, because then the second board you're going to have to do this piece, right? And then that's 4 feet. Okay, but then you'll have another 4-foot piece, okay, where you can come down here for your second layer. Okay, and then on your third piece, you're going to cut out, your 8-foot guy and sandwich them together. It's important to stagger the joints. So, like I said, the first one, this nose piece is the 4 feet and the body's the 8 feet. But on the second layer, the nose piece is the 8 piece, and then this back layer is the 4 foot. Okay, foamular in the middle. Okay, the joints don't stagger. You get a super strong piece of polystyrene when you do that. Okay. So here's our top view. Like I was saying, you can see that I staggered the joints. Those 2 pieces just go on top of each other, and that makes the base of your kayak. Okay, and then you build up the sides. Okay, try to stagger the joints when possible. My kayak is 7 layers deep. Okay, and two things I guess I would have done differently is number one, I built mine straight up. So just just straight up, because I thought, I'm going to minimize the sanding, right? And actually, I didn't minimize any sanding at all, because what I needed to do when I was all done, and I looked at the kayak, and it was a 90-degree box. It just didn't look like a boat. So I added material in the top, tapered it down, did a lot of sanding to give it some width at the top, make it look more like a boat. But you could accomplish that same thing by just staggering your layers. So every time you put a new layer on, stagger it over a half of an inch. You got a half inch on two sides. Every time you come up, 2 inches, you're going to be going out 1 inch. So you come up 2 inch, you go out 1 inch. In 7 layers. Okay, in 7 layers, you'll go out 7 inches. So if we start with 36 inches on the bottom, you'll be 42 inches by the time you get to the top, and that still fits between your two wheel wells, okay, in your truck. So I would have done that. And the other thing I would have done, which I didn't do, I would have used solid pieces for the nose pieces. Doesn't have to even be that long, okay, maybe a foot, okay, but I brought the pieces together. Brought this piece on this side, this piece on this side, put glue to put the two together. If I did it over again, I wouldn't do that. If I did it over again, I would have made a bunch of triangles, 7 of them, and I would have just, well, after I guess 5 of them, because your first 2 are already done, then I would do 5 more, and I would have stacked them up, and then I would have had my sides join those triangles, because the thing that was hardest with the whole build, honestly, was bringing those two sides together to the nose piece. And you could eliminate all that hassle, okay, just by having, like I said, 5 1-foot triangles. Doesn't even have to be much, okay, but just enough so you're not having to bring those two sides together, because that was kind of a pain. Okay, so I would do that, and people, that's about it. I learned a lot when I built this kayak. It came out really, really well. I did have to backtrack some, because, like I said, I learned some things on the way. And like everything, usually the second time is a better time. And I don't know necessarily that if I built, another one of these, the second one would be better than the first one, because this thing is really working really, really well. Wait till you see the rest of the videos. Okay, but I would have been more efficient. I probably would have used a little bit less foamular, and I would have probably wouldn't have had to do as much sanding. I actually thought by going straight up, I would eliminate the sanding, and what I ended up doing is I think I ended up making more sanding for myself. Okay, when I added material to the sides to taper it down. Okay, so that's just some thoughts for me, and I know there wasn't a lot of this is more of an informative talk today, but it's important, because when you start something like this, when I started, I had no idea where I was going. Right, I kind of had an idea, and I anticipated running into problems along the way, which I did, but now once I've run into all those problems, if I had to do it again, I would be a lot more efficient. Okay, so I had a really, really fun time doing this. If you like what's going on, just go ahead and like this channel, and go ahead and subscribe, because there's more videos to come. I imagine this is going to be an ongoing project. You can always add something to a kayak. Okay, this is a one-man Cadillac. Okay, and I'm going to have this in the creeks here in North Texas, and I'm going to try to take it down, to Rockport and the Gulf and the Bay, chasing redfish and things like that. And this thing is going to be the envy of all those people that go to a box store and buy a kayak, because it's going to be way, way more better. Okay, with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Okay, subscribe to my channel.